So guys, we have a bit of a breaking story. Frank Luntz is a very popular name that you might have possibly heard of up until now. And Tucker Carlson has literally just taken this guy to town. We're going to play the clip. It goes for about 5 minutes, and then we're going to break it all down for you. So let's just hear what Tucker Carlson has to say.
Luntz lobbies, he's not a registered lobbyist, but he lobbies on behalf of some of the world's most left-wing corporations. A lot of people do that. Here's the interesting thing about Frank Luntz. At the same time he's doing that, he also advises the leadership of the Republican Party. So Frank Luntz works for Google and Nike and Delta Airlines, among many others. Several years ago, Frank Luntz advised the makers of OxyContin on how to blame rural Americans as thousands of young people in rural America drop dead of opioid ODs. Frank Luntz did that. So he's not someone that normal people would go to for advice. And if you were running the Republican Party, you definitely wouldn't, because Frank Luntz is effectively a Democrat. We know this because we've listened to him. Now, Luntz typically launders his own opinions through the pseudoscientific focus groups that he conducts. But in real life, his views, make no mistake, bear no resemblance whatsoever to the views of actual Republican voters. So again, the question is, how did someone like this wind up with so much influence in the Republican Party? Why do Republican officials listen more carefully to Frank Luntz than they listen to their own voters? That is a mystery. A lot of people have asked that question in Washington. And as of 3 days ago, here was our best guess for why. So why does Frank Luntz remain a fixture in Republican politics at a time when the companies he works for are opposed to the Republican Party, explicitly so? Well, in part because he is particularly close to the House Minority Leader, Kevin McCarthy of California, and has been since McCarthy entered politics. In an interview earlier this year, Luntz described Kevin McCarthy as a personal friend. And that relationship gives Frank Luntz outsized influence over the Republican Party's policy positions. So Luntz is a personal friend of Kevin McCarthy's, who's the top-ranking Republican in the House. That's what we said. Turns out we didn't know the half of it. Over the weekend, we got a call from a source who said that, in fact, Frank Luntz and Kevin McCarthy are not simply friends, they're roommates. Kevin McCarthy lives in Frank Luntz's apartment in downtown Washington. That's what we were told, and honestly, we did not believe it. The top Republican in the House lives with a Google lobbyist? Come on. Even by the sleazy and corrupt standards of politics in Washington, that did not seem possible. In fact, it sounded like a joke. But this morning, since we heard it, we called to check with Kevin McCarthy's spokeswoman. And when we raised this, she all but chuckled at the suggestion. No. When he's in Washington, she told us, Kevin McCarthy rents hotel rooms or sleeps in his office in the Capitol. He certainly isn't living with Frank Luntz. Okay, and that seemed logical to us. But we did press a little bit because we got the tip from someone we consider reliable, and we just wanted to be sure. So the spokeswoman said she would get back to us. 2 hours later, we got this text, quote, following up on our conversation from earlier today. Because of the pandemic, McCarthy has rented a room in Washington at a fair market price from Frank Luntz. So actually, the top Republican in the House does live with someone who lobbies for Google. Mystery solved. Not only are they friends, they're roommates. So now you know why they listen to Frank Luntz, but they don't listen to you.
Right. So we're just going to leave that image up on the screen for a little bit because it's kind of funny. So, I don't know how this is controversial. Frank Luntz has been my friend for more than 30 years. GOP leader Kevin McCarthy defends renting an apartment from GOP pollster branded a secret liberal. You don't seem to get this, do you? Your friend literally lobbies for companies that want to censor you on their platform. You are supposed to represent the interests of your constituents. And by the way, guys, it gets better. This is the first part of it, right? There's more to this video yet. So you are living with a flatmate who lobbies against your party's interests. Now, at the end of the day, that in itself is no real big deal, right? Okay, maybe they don't talk shop. I don't know. Maybe they're best friends. Whatever it may be, right? You got to admit, though, it's a little weird. You know, that the guy that he's sharing his house with is, at the end of the day, lobbying for Google and these left-wing companies that seem to hate the Republican Party. That in itself is a little... It's weird, but at the end of the day, it's no real big deal. It's no real big deal breaker. But this is where it gets better, because this is where it might start getting into some really, really... It might be illegal. Let's break into it.
No matter how cynical you've become lately watching Washington, that's still a pretty remarkable thing to learn. But other questions remain. For example, what did the coronavirus pandemic have to do with Kevin McCarthy's choice of apartments? The Chinese unleash a virus on the world, and all of a sudden congressional leaders have to live with Frank Luntz? Was there CDC guidance on that? If so, we missed it. If anything, COVID increased the number of housing options in Washington, D.C. In some places, apartment prices fell, but not in Frank Luntz's building. Frank Luntz lives in one of the most expensive buildings in Washington. We pulled the deed and we checked. The estimate that we found shows that Luntz's condo in the fashionable Penn Quarter part of the city would likely rent for over $5,000 a month. That's the, quote, fair market price. So the question is Kevin McCarthy paying $5,000 every month to Frank Luntz to live in his house? We would love to know the answer. We asked several times of his office, and no one got back to us with an answer. If Kevin McCarthy isn't paying market price, he is likely violating House ethics rules on taking gifts. And someday, we have no doubt, we will find out exactly what he is paying. But no matter what he's paying, as far as we're concerned, the price of the apartment is not the crime here. Kevin McCarthy's real crime is mocking his voters. Kevin McCarthy promises Republicans he shares their values. He tells them he's on their side. He says that he will fight for them against permanent Washington, the forces that would like to destroy their lives. Voters believe Kevin McCarthy when he says this. They send him back to office every 2 years. They send him money. And at the end of the day, Kevin McCarthy goes home to Frank Luntz's apartment in Penn Quarter, and he laughs about it.
So, to me, the whole him not representing it's bad. It's bad for him. It's bad for his re-election campaign, whatever it may be. It's not illegal. As far as I know. I'm not a lawyer. But the health ethics rules, that is something that might be illegal. That might get him in a lot more trouble than him going through and just being best friends with a lobbyist who is lobbying for his opposition. So, like I say, he's obviously, Kevin Rhodes defends renting an apartment from GOP pollster, branded a secret liberal. At the end of the day, he turned around and he's saying, I don't know how this was controversial. Frank has been a friend of mine for more than 30 years, McCarthy said on Fox and Friends when asked about his living situation. To me, this is not illegal, immoral, sure. Is this going to affect his standing in the party? Definitely interesting. But Republican House Leader Kevin McCarthy admits he rented a room from GOP pollster Frank Luntz, who's a secret liberal, by the way. Look, at the end of the day, this is obviously everybody is talking about this right now. Who is Frank Luntz? Frank Luntz is a Republican political consultant and a pundit who may be the most quoted and influenced pollster in the US. So, this guy has a great deal of influence for the Republican Party. That's the rub. And at the end of the day, that influence is very, very felt in the Republican Party. And while he has that influence in the Republican Party, he is also going through and lobbying for Google and all these sort of places, who at the moment are the ones going through and banning most of the Trumpenites. You know, it does make you wonder, you know, did he know about Donald Trump being banned off Twitter? Did he have anything to do with it, for example? Like, he's the one lobbying Google, right? So, or does he have anything to do with Twitter, for example? Did he know about that? Did he lobby for Trump, or was he against Trump? You know, just because he's GOP doesn't mean he's pro-Trump. Tucker Carlson claims that Kevin McCarthy rents DC rent for GOP staff. That's not the only thing that Tucker Carlson has actually said. But at the end of the day, yeah, like, to me, it's the Health Ethics Committee rules that are more damning than anything. So he admits to renting a luxury DC apartment from powerful GOP pollster Frank Luntz, who Tucker Carlson has accused of being a secret liberal. Well, he literally lobbies for Google. Yeah. So, yeah, interesting story that's breaking. Really, really interesting, actually. Well, obviously keep an eye on it. But I don't think Frank Luntz or McCarthy is going to be doing any favours to each other when it comes to the GOP. I think the GOP is going to distance these two guys in the future. Personally, I would not send McCarthy back to Washington. I would change. I would find someone else. Look, I don't know what the guy's like. I don't know what his policies are like. I don't know where he stands on a lot of things. I don't know if he's pro-Trump, against Trump. I don't know. But at the end of the day, it might be time for people to start looking into his policies and just saying, you know, hey, does this guy actually represent us, or can we get someone that's better? Your thoughts. And at the end of the day, guys, you select who you want to send to Washington. So, you know, at the end of the day, if you're not comfortable sending McCarthy back to Washington in a year, 2 years, whatever it is, when he's up for re-election, find someone else. Find someone who will represent you. But let me know what your thoughts are in that comment section below. If this video has been helpful, please smack that like button. If you're new to the channel, welcome and subscribe. Apart from that, guys, we'll see you in the next demonetized video from YouTube tomorrow. Apart from that, I'll just leave you with that image. Apart from that, guys, have a great night. Enjoy yourself. Smack like, share the video, and we'll see you tomorrow. Have a great night, everybody.